marks on his skin for months. These physical challenges were simply accepted as part of the job in an era with fewer protections for performers. The group of actors playing the Munchkins has long been surrounded by rumors and myths, particularly about wild behavior behind the scenes. While some cast members later described a lively atmosphere, many of the more scandalous stories have been exaggerated over time. What is clear, however, is that these performers worked long hours in demanding conditions, often without the recognition or protection afforded to leading actors. Many elements of the production would be considered unacceptable today. The snow used in the poppy field scene was made of asbestos. Makeup contained potentially toxic substances. Safety standards for stunts and effects were minimal. Actors performed dangerous scenes with little protection. At the time, these practices were common in Hollywood, particularly under the powerful studio system dominated by companies like MGM. MGM invested heavily in The Wizard of Oz, making it one of the most expensive films of its time. With so much money at stake, the pressure to succeed was enormous. Executives closely monitored production